If you only knew the problems I had trying to get this stream started. A funny thing happened actually just before this stream went ahead. Aidan Mack said, "Robert, you're drunk," and it was obviously a joke, and jokingly I said, "How did you know?" But it really seems like I am drunk at this point because it took forever to get this stream going, but it looks like people are coming back. If this is your first, obviously, Fight Talk Live Chat, I'm your host Rob. I'm joined by MMA on Points, Jason Hartley. Jason, how are you?
Doing well, man. Yeah, pretty chill Friday, so doing well, man.
Yeah, so if this is your first live chat, it is what it is. It's a live chat. If you've seen anybody else doing a live chat where they answer questions like MMA fighting, but it's like MMA on fighting. It's a similar setup. We answer all your questions. We talk about some stuff that we want to talk about, and we have a bit of crack, as they say over here. There's a few things that I want to get to personally. There's obviously a lot of stuff that Jason probably wants to get to, and a lot of stuff that you want to get to. Of course, in the title is Conor McGregor media blackout for UFC 229. Apparently, he's not doing any media. We haven't seen any from Conor so far, but it is still early. But it's been reported that he's actually refusing to do media, at least this far out. Nick Diaz might be back soon as the charges in his domestic abuse case are dropped, and he put up a tweet or Instagram or whatever it was saying that he's working on his comeback to MMA, I guess. Chuck T03 is set for November 24th. I know it's going to make Jason very happy as he shakes his head. But firstly, I want to get into the Conor McGregor stuff. And obviously, if you have any questions regarding this or any comments regarding this, we'll answer over the chat. But what's your thoughts when you read that Dave Meltzer, who's a veteran MMA journalist, said that Conor is apparently not doing media for this fight, at least not now, and the UFC are very, very unhappy with him? Are you surprised?
Considering what happened at UFC 200 where they canceled the main event because Conor wanted to do it then, makes a lot of sense, and I don't have any doubts in that. I don't know what it was about Ronda Rousey where when she fought at 207, UFC was totally cool with her doing absolutely no media. Zero. Except for like I think she did like one big show like Ellen DeGeneres or something like that. Yeah. And that was it. So she didn't have to do any interviews. She didn't have to do media day, no media workouts, none of that typical stuff. She totally avoided every bit of it. And I think what's probably a little bit more likely is Dana White recognized she's on her way out. We might as well just cash in while we can. And they know that Conor McGregor is going to be around and this would be repeated behavior. That's the only thing I can possibly think of. It's like this guy will do 5 or 6 more fights with us, 4 on the low end, probably, maybe even 3. But I really think it's going to be a little more than that. And as a result, we can't let him get by without doing this, and the example that it sets for everyone else, even though they already broke that with Rousey. And I don't agree with it. I think if you got your big major star who's, this really big cash cow, if the sales aren't good, Conor McGregor he'll learn. He
He'll
likes
suffer as well because he's one of the guys who certainly gets pay-per-view points. I
would argue what this does is this builds up bit more hype for that last week because everyone's like, oh shit, they're finally face to face. So that weigh-in, dude, like if they don't even do like a press conference, if they went like full Ronda Rousey, but they still did the weigh-in,
full Ronda Rousey.
Ronda Rousey,
it's a
no
verb.
Media. Full Ronda Rousey, no media. Then you're looking at a situation where that weigh-in all of a sudden becomes this huge event, like just massive. I'm going to be there, by the way, so I'm stoked about that.
Don't rub it in.
I have to keep like reminding myself because, this is the first like massive fight I've ever been to.
Yeah.
So
my take is similar in a way. Like I don't like the fact that he's not doing it if that's the case, but I'd also argue that there might be a little bit of method behind the madness. The reason why I say that is because remember back at UFC 200, as I think you just mentioned it, when he got pulled from the card because he didn't want to do media, and there was a whole thing about that. Then for UFC 202, when he fought Nate, when the fight was rescheduled, I don't really remember him doing a whole lot of media for that either. They done the press conference the week of, but aside from that, did you see him on many shows? Did you see him doing... There was obviously no world tour, and that's the biggest pay-per-view of all time. So if Conor is looking back and saying...
Right.
He's saying, okay, I done basically no media for that fight. The fight sold itself. We're just going to sell the fight on fight week. is that big of a problem? Because I don't know the actual data. I looked for this today because I'm a big data guy, I'm a big data nerd. That's what my job is, my actual job. And I was looking for data on when people buy pay-per-views. I couldn't find exact numbers, but I did find that pretty much everybody that I've seen buys pay-per-views the night of, an hour before, 30 minutes before. So I know you need to get all the casuals in by doing all these morning shows in the States and all these Conan late night shows and stuff like that, but I don't know if it's really going to affect it. And I think the UFC just need to take it on the chin, to be honest. I think this fight is going to sell. He needs to do a certain level of media, especially fight week, but I don't know if like he needs to do media right now.
Yeah, I mean, on the other token of that, like, I agree with everything you're saying there, and I think those are some really compelling points. Especially, I mean, I've never bought a pay-per-view even the day before. Yeah. I bought it like, oh, I'm going over to watch it with some of my friends, or I've got some friends coming over. They're on the way now. Let me go ahead and buy it. You know, I'm not even buying it in the morning. I'm buying it an hour or two out from, you know, the prelims or something like that when I'm thinking about it right then. But I guess kind of on the other side of this, though, so much about Conor's appeal is his trash talk. You know what I mean? He is so good in those press interview moments, those times where people are just kind of coming out and saying, hey, you know, what do you think about this? And then Conor reacts to it and, you know, who the fuck is that guy? You know, like all these memeable, famous moments, pretty much everything that we know about Conor McGregor personality wise, almost all of it became famous from press conferences. Yeah. So there is something to be said for that. But 202, he still did do the press conferences. Yeah. He didn't do the TV shows. He didn't do the interviews like Nate Diaz did, Jimmy Kimmel, and he did Conan. Those were actually really bad interviews. It's funny that Nate Diaz can be like super on and super entertaining like he was after 196. And he's like, oh, you're a wrestler now, and like telling these great stories and stuff. Yeah. And then sometimes he's just like, yeah, it's kill or be killed. And he's just like, chill.
Generic MMA guy speak, that type of thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I think there should be some point. There definitely should be a press conference the week of, 100%. Because that's a big part of him. But even if it didn't happen, I do think that the fight sells really well. Because, I mean, his volleying partners Khabib.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing. I get it, and I know it does set a bad example for other fighters, I suppose. And the UFC historically has a very rigid, structured media obligation, I suppose, list. And he's kind of gone against that completely. Obviously, so did Rousey. But I'm not sure if it's that big of a deal in terms of what they're going to make. I think maybe it might impact the gate because I know that fight, the 202 fight, there was a weird disparity between the gate numbers and the pay-per-view numbers. And maybe because a lot of people would buy tickets ahead, a lot of people wouldn't buy tickets on the night, they would buy them beforehand. Maybe the lack of media beforehand would impact that, but not necessarily impact the pay-per-view sales.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, there's definitely, like buying tickets, there is an immediate need to buy them. Yeah. Where pay-per-view is just like you're getting the same seat as everyone else. There is no, I want to sit up front and I want to sit in a really good spot, or I want to make sure I'm not in the nosebleeds. It's just like, $65, good to go.
Exactly. I can get it anytime. There's no immediacy. I'd love to hear people on the chat what their opinion is. Do any of you people, Jesus, does anyone in the chat buy a pay-per-view more than one day out from the fight or from whatever the pay-per-view is? Because I don't know anybody personally. David Jason Milligan said LOL. I guess that's to my ineptity. Here we go. Hell yeah, Nick versus Woodley. Potentially Nick needs to get a couple of wins though before he gets the type of guy that Woodley is, I guess.
Yeah, he hasn't won since BJ Penn in 2011.
Jesus Christ.
You don't get a title shot of not winning in 7 years. I want him to get a title shot. I want him, I want to see that fight, but I want to see it in true sportsman, I want it to be one of those things where yeah, he smokes a couple people at 170, and then there he is fighting for the title. Even if he did, like, he's in that same stratosphere as his brother. If he fights one big fighter and wins, you can do that,
yeah.
you know, like,
yeah.
And the thing is, they would actually be up for it. They'd be like, oh, this top 5 guy sees that Nick Diaz is out there, and then they know they can make a big money payday off of fighting Nick Diaz. There's a win-win there. I think it's more of a compromise, but yeah, I think you really need to build up to a title fight. I don't think you can justify under any stretch of the imagination 7 years without a win and getting a title shot. Woodley, I just don't. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Even though Woodley, yeah, we can see M Crossify said Woodley would take that fight in a heartbeat. Absolutely, Woodley called for it. I think after one of his fights, he's like, "No, I want somebody like Nick Diaz."
It wasn't even day one. It was hour one. It was immediately afterwards. He was like, it was in the on the Fox broadcast when Stephen Thompson challenged him to a fight. He was like, no, I think I want to fight Nick Diaz or GSP. He was on board from the beginning. Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit more about the whole Conor media thing. But just before I do, if somebody can share this like on Reddit, on Twitter, on Facebook, get some more people in so we can build this chat up a little bit. That'd be great. We'd really appreciate that. MySpace. It's making a comeback.
No, it's not. Yeah, that's more of a Justin Timberlake joke, I think.
What's the guy's name? Was it Tom? Was that the guy's name?
Tom. MySpace.
Tom from MySpace. Yeah. What a dude. All our friends. Mark Zuckerberg didn't do that. Didn't become friends with us when we joined Facebook. What the hell? Surmer Burke. I hope it hasn't been asked already, but do you think Conor might not be very motivated for this fight? It's the first time in his career he'll make less money than his previous fight. Platinum bless.
Well, I mean, I think the last time he did this was when he was fighting Diaz for the second time after the loss. And, you know, Diaz even made fun of Conor for having photos of the punches that he landed in the first fight that he lost against Diaz in the $300,000 facility that he had makeshift set up in Las Vegas, because he normally, you know, just trains at SPG, right? And so he set up this massive campus with all these pictures and stuff and said, I don't want to do any media. I want to focus on that guy and those pictures, land those punches again, only harder and stiffer, you know, like, so it's like one of these kind of things where the only other time we've seen him act like this is the times where he's super motivated. He feels like a big underdog. And obviously Mayweather McGregor was kind of its own show, but he has more of the control here. He just simply does. He has basically, I mean, it's like what we just talked about with him saying, I'm not going to do press obligations. No one else could get away with that. Nick Diaz, as an example, got kicked off of a card for trying not to show up to a press conference. Once you hit a certain stratosphere, the UFC is just kind of like, well, do we turn down, especially an already booked pay-per-view, already signed pay-per-view, their hands are kind of tied at this point. Like, they can't just be like, you're off the card. That would be catastrophic for them. Especially considering it's like one of these extremely high ticket priced events, high demand. There's just no way they could get away with it.
I think you're right. I don't think Conor's not motivated for this fight at all. I think he's more motivated. I think that's the reason why he isn't doing media. As you said, that's the reason why he didn't do media for that first fight. He basically said he lost that one, and he wants to make the adjustments he needed to make. And I think it's a similar situation. I think he wants to keep his mind on the camp. And also, don't forget what happened with the dolly, and don't forget what led up to that. Now, you might laugh, and it's not really funny. It is funny.
Can you imagine making that sentence like just even 6 months ago, not making any sort of sense? Don't forget what happened with the dolly. It's a serious statement.
So in case nobody knows what happened with the dolly, Conor came from Ireland to go after Khabib because Khabib squared up to his friend.
His boy.
That's how motivated Conor is. Conor is very upset about that.
That's a really good point.
You know, you don't go and smash up a bus with loads of fighters on it if you're not motivated to get at the other guy. So I think he's clearly motivated. Noel OFT, Noel, the usual host. Is that the guy from MMA Point?
Yeah, finally in the same place at the same time. Sort of. But yes, It's me from MMA Point. Or as you were saying earlier, you were saying MMA on fighting. So
MMA
apparently
fighting.
we got like a secret merger with MMA fighting that's coming
Breaking
up.
Breaking news. Somebody tweet that.
Yeah, they would like slap us. They'd be like, actually, you know what? We're just going to get your channel pulled down. How about that?
Although, to be fair, if video content, I think you got them beat. I think in reviews, I think you got them beat. M Crossify and Surmer Burke, I always get his name wrong. Mr. Burke said there's no reason to buy a pay-per-view until just before it, and same thing for M Crossify. Yep. So it seems like it's legit. 100% people go buy it the day of.
Well, you actually bring up a good point by saying that, because there is no reason to really do it. Because, I mean, how many times have we seen someone fought the day before, the day of? Like, I mean, it wasn't the biggest fight ever, but Amanda Nunes versus Shevchenko, it was at UFC 213 in July of last year. She literally fell ill the day of. She had already weighed in. Everything was good to go. You know, you're like, all right, we're good. And then the worst case is Kevin Randleman, when he was supposed to fight Pedro Hizzo back at like UFC 13 or something like that. He tripped on a pipe. Yeah. And he knocked himself out. He knocked himself unconscious. So they're like, all right, that's it, you know? So I agree. I fully agree. You should wait until the day of. It's actually in your best interest, unless it's just such a stacked card where you're like, I could lose 3 of these fights and I don't care, which is rare. It almost never happens, you know?
See, I guess this is Tom. He says MMA Point in the house. Tom, is Love Island over? Is it done? I don't be following it, but you know, is it over?
No, that was just me. That was just me. I'm just in the chat too. So
yeah,
I was just replying to him.
Let me get some other questions. What's your thoughts on Donald Cerrone's beef with Winklejohn? Have you seen this?
Yeah. What's interesting is, I mean, it's obviously like a 2 or 3 hour podcast. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But they actually took down the original posting and then re-uploaded. And I don't know if that was because of the drug talk. I assume it was more because of the drug talk, because I looked at it this morning and the Winklejohn stuff was still in there. But yeah, I mean, I guess it has to do with competitive issues within inside the gym, and then basically wanting to take Mike Perry for their fight instead of him. Yeah. And they're like, nope, we're going to go with him, even though he's kind of like the old dog who's been around forever. It's the only thing it really reminds me of, and they're obviously not nearly as close, but the John Jones, Rashad Evans kind of deal. When Rashad Evans was like,
same camp,
we can't fight, and now that we are, I'm going to leave. And at the same point, you know, Jackson himself, Greg Jackson, decided to corner John Jones, and I think that was pretty much decided even if Rashad didn't do that. So it's a very awkward place to be. And I think as a head coach, I mean, I've seen tons of head coaches just pull out of stuff and just say, you know what, I'm pretty sure, oh man, I want to say SBG's done that, where John Kavanaugh has had to say, all right, this is a divisional matchup. And maybe it was someone else, but where they've literally said, you know what, I'm not going to coach my fighter against another fighter. They're going to have one of their closest friends who's worked up a strategy, and I can talk to them about everything beforehand, but I'm not going to literally stand in there. So that's obviously more Cerrone's side from the Winklejohn and, you know, Jackson side.
Thing, isn't it?
More of a prima donna type kind of situation. And you honestly don't know who's right. That doesn't sound like Cerrone to me, but it literally comes down to who's word over who. You never know somebody until you know them. All we know is Cerrone's TV persona. As unlikely as it seems, it definitely could be. You just don't know until you know, you know?
Yeah, it's a weird, like, it's hard to make a comment on it because you don't know what the truth is. Donald Cerrone had 3 hours to talk about with Joe Rogan, and Winklejohn and Jackson were sitting back in Albuquerque, I guess, just chilling out and saying, oh shit, we need to go do some interviews because we look terrible here. So you don't know what's true. Cerrone always does come across as genuine, so I wouldn't think that he's lying, but also I've had plenty of situations where I've been in a situation where someone's, say, done me wrong or whatever, and to me it seemed worse than it was, and when all the facts are laid out, you're like, okay, maybe I overreacted there, maybe I was in the wrong as well. So there's always, you know, it's always in the middle, as they say. There's always that grey area of truth. But I wonder, the one that you said, the example of a fighter pulling out, I wonder if anybody in the chat knows what that is. I'm not sure. I do remember, though, there was definitely a fight where the coach kind of just said, yeah, I'm going to sit out this one and you can go fight.
Yeah, dude, my mind's like scanning through people. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. I mean, maybe John Danaher's had to do it once or twice, but
yeah, he's not really
a head coach. For us, a hobby. Maybe he's done it,
Maybe it was for us. It might have been for us. That could be. I guess you also seen Diego Sanchez call out Cerrone, basically taking the side of Jackson Wink.
Yeah.
Who's obviously, he's a Jackson Wink fighter as well. Man, I hope to God they don't make Cerrone versus Diego Sanchez in some kind of grudge fight. Diego Sanchez does not need that at this point in his career.
Yeah, I mean, he's in that weird twilight phase where it's like, I mean, when you look at some of the knockouts he's had, like the Matt Brown elbow from hell, like he like flipped over himself. And you're talking about the guy that beat Nick Diaz in the past. I'm just going to keep bringing up his intersecting storylines with everyone else on this podcast. But like he beat guys like that back in the day. And when he fought BJ Penn for the title, he fit every bit of that moniker being the Nightmare. Who's just this incredible fighter. He smoked Kenny Florian on the first season. The Ultimate Fighter wasn't even close. It was to the point where, like, if you watch the behind the scenes stuff, Dana White was talking about how it felt like the show was going to be a dud as a result.
Yeah.
Because you had this big Ultimate Fighter finale and it looks like a mismatch, That's how good Diego Sanchez was in his day. But that version of him is very far gone. So, I hope those two don't end up fighting. I honestly just hope he, just does the right decision for himself. Obviously, I'm saying this on the outside, but I mean, health-wise. I mean, the guy's been smashed a few times, and it's as a result. It's not as a result of his skill, his talent, his will. It's a result of his age, his progression, the damage he's sustained. So that's a whole nother story. But
sore Mr. Burke. I'm not gonna make a comment on this. I just thought it was funny. He goes, "Yeah, fair point. This was about Conor. Yeah, fair point. I thought it was the coke, to be honest, but you might be right."
Well, that's the thing, like, think of the times you've been pissed off about somebody, like something that somebody did to you.
Yeah.
But now imagine them doing that to one of your friends.
Yeah.
It amps everything up because you're like, you can say shit about me, but dude, like, you said something about one of my really good friends, especially, Artem's a little lower in the totem pole. He's like, I got to defend that guy. He's going to get murdered. He's the greatest of all time, but
yeah.
Just very interesting.
What else do we have here? Somebody said, I think it was Jan van den Bos said, I hope Jones stays banned. Do you wish for that? Do you wish that Jones stays banned and never fights again?
No.
Yeah, neither do I.
I hope he comes back. I mean, I made the greatest, the 10, greatest all-time fighters, and I still put him at number one as the greatest of all time. I honestly believe that. And I mean, anyone else that you put in that top three, Anderson Silva's had accusations that Joe Rogan famously did that at Fedor's last fight, calling out Fedor and saying that he thought he was on the juice. Because, I mean, it was like, if you think about it, he won a couple of fights once he came to America, and then he just started getting smashed. And even when he came to America, it was under affliction. And Josh Barnett famously popped there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, fighting is not clean. When you look into it, I mean, it's like the analogy I look at. Yeah, we'll look into it. The analogy I use is computer hacking. When people are taking steroids and stuff like that, it's not like you can just set up a screen and everyone's like, oh, okay, well, I can't go this way, and they just stay inside their pocket and they fight clean. It's like, no, there's a million ways around it, and you just have to be clever enough to do it. And I mean, it's like when you watch that documentary Icarus, there's a point where the guy who's in charge of WADA, the guy that like devised most of the early tests, period, that we use since the 80s, like since you were seeing guys getting popped, back in the 80s Olympics, that was the guy that was catching these people. And this is WADA. This is what, USADA works through WADA for the Olympics. And they test basically all the pro athletes in the entire world for the Olympics. WADA is the central agency that's in charge of that for the entire world. That guy who devised most of their early systems and was in charge for most of their, kind of development until he decided to retire and kind of, move into an advisory role, said that he thinks everyone is cheating.
Yeah.
And this isn't fighting. This is everything. These are the clean sports, right? These are these are like the LeBron James type kind of sports. They have basketball in the Olympics too. Like, he thought everyone was cheating. Those were his words. He says, I think they're all cheating. Like, that's one hell of a statement. And WADA is USADA. It's the same thing. It's WADA's in charge of USADA during the Olympics. RUSADA famously is where the guy came from, and they were, so I'm getting really into this, but if you want to crucify Jones for his PED use, if you want to crucify him for that, I swear to God, you're going to be disappointed about almost every single fighter you're a fan of, because at one point, if USADA keeps going and this system keeps going, your favorite fighter will pop.
Yeah. Like
almost certainly. The Diaz brothers are maybe the only two that I would say are totally clean of that. And I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, but like GSP's been accused of it over and over. Nick Diaz, again, intersecting plot lines with Nick Diaz, famously said that over and over to him. Bisping said it to him.
I wonder. You'd have to wonder, wouldn't you? Like,
he's pregnant. The motion didn't make sense. But
you would have to wonder. I tend to think he's not, but you would have to wonder. Like, generally, the saying that where there's smoke, there's fire. So you would have to wonder. It seems like a lot of time when people are really close to a situation, and obviously, Bisping and stuff wouldn't be that close to GSP's situation, but they're all in a pretty small circle, people get talking and, they hear stuff. But I'd wonder, like, I haven't seen that many people saying they wouldn't like to see John Jones back, but the people in the chat, let us know. Do you have any problem with John Jones coming back, or would you welcome it, I guess?
I think I just earned people I think I just earned you the first dislike. Like, it's a facts over feelings.
No, that happened before. I noticed it.
Oh, did?
Yeah. Reveal yourself, motherfucker.
Yeah, seriously. This is like a small podcast, where it's like we're thrilled to have everyone in here chatting, and someone's just like, fuck them, dude.
Yeah. Do you know what it is? It's probably the kitchen.
Come on, man.
There's always one guy who just cannot deal with my kitchen. I don't know what it is. I'm going to really quickly, don't want to bore you, but I'm going to give you the reason why I do this in my kitchen is because I have really incredibly terrible lighting in the room that I usually do it in. Once the natural light goes, it's fucked. So I got to do it in here. So it's either you look at my kitchen or you look at a dark room, seedy looking me in there. Yeah, so that's why I do it in the kitchen.
Are you making anything good?
What?
Got anything simmering in the background?
In the oven? Nah, it's off now. I already made it. It's done.
Dang. I wanted to talk about cooking for... No.
Okay. we'll get another dislike. Noel said, the truth lies in the middle of both sides, but you have to take into account what Cowboys comments, some of Cowboys comments. I agree with that. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. M. Crossify said, would you guys be loyal to the paying up and coming fighter with the attention, or the old vet that's been through and the good and the bad, but possibly on the decline but still popular? I fumbled my way through that question, but basically, would you take the side of Mike Perry? Would you bring Mike Perry in and treat him as the new guy in the gym and give him your attention, or stay loyal to the old guy who has been there?
I mean, when you look at Mike Perry's record, it hasn't been that good lately. I'm like blanking on what his didn't he lose twice in a row very recently? Yeah,
and then he got a win there recently. So I'll get his record up now. His last win was Paul Felder. Good win, short notice fight against a guy coming up from 155, but then he lost to Max Griffin and Santiago Ponzinibbio, who are two really good fighters, to be fair.
Yeah, and Paul Felder was coming up for that, right?
Yeah.
Paul Felder is a 155er. So it's still a win, and Paul Felder is awesome. So that's a great win. But Ponzinibbio and Max Griffin. So it's kind of like one of these kind of things where it's like, did you really want to put all your eggs in that basket? My hope is that this is a weird way to say it, but my hope is there actually were complications with Cerrone, and it's not just like they pushed him to the side and they're like, get out of here, old man. I would rather it be that Cerrone was just being a dick. Like it's it's better on the gym, at least, is what I mean. So I don't necessarily care who is, the one to make the wrong type kind of thing. I'm not saying I hope they fucked up or anything, but it's one of these kind of things where, yeah, like if they chose based on the fact that he was young, I think that was a bad move. I think that seniority is important. I mean, it's a weird thing. I mean, if you got 2-year fighters coming back together, I think it comes back to that statement of, be more neutral out of it, kind of pull your hand out of it, maybe bring somebody in that is neutral to the situation, and you can kind of talk to them about, hey, here are some of his strengths, here are some of his weaknesses, here's the way that you work with him, here's how his schedule works, here's how he likes to work, and then you solve it just like that. Yeah. And they're popular enough fighters to where that would make enough sense, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, without knowing all the facts, don't
know.
Yeah. You'd have to. For me, you'd have to side with the veteran of the gym. For me. But again, we don't know all the facts. Cerrone could have been, half in, half out. We know he's been training down at his BMF ranch for a long time. So maybe he only comes to the gym every once in a while, and maybe to him, he still felt like they should be loyal to him. But then on their end, they're like, well, you barely show up to the gym. And this is me just speculating because of whatever kind of information we have out there. You don't really show up to the gym that much, so why can't we have a new guy? So, it's a weird one. But for me, I think you got to side with the guy who's been there a long time. And you have to have some allegiance to that, in my opinion. But, again, it's a weird one. We don't know all the facts.
Yeah.
Rafael Schaefer, the Brazilian one himself, said, agree with both of you lads, and I want to add that at least the comments about you guys off Street Fights Pros, what the hell? Oh, I think he's talking about the comments that Cerrone meant about street fighters basically coming in to fight the pros, and the wrestling coach being a former steroid seller. Yeah, did you see that?
Did he say that in that interview?
Cerrone said that basically the way the gym has functioned lately is that they'll just bring in random guys to come in and spar with the pros. It's not really separated. Yeah. And then he also said that their wrestling coach is like a former coach of some school, some college, but he's also a receptionist or something and a former steroids dealer, according to Cerrone.
Yeah, so that kind of goes back to the everyone's cheating kind of thing. It's like, that's in the elite gyms. Those guys are in the elite gyms. If he's right, obviously, I think Jackson Wink would vehemently, say that's not the truth. But
yeah. So Javier Shepard said it could be false, of course, but he's leaning towards Cerrone, I guess. NB said Costa is literally a bodybuilder.
I mean, if he were a bodybuilder, he'd be pretty small, right?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
He's a big motherfucker by any other stretch of the imagination, by any other realm. But those bodybuilders, like, it's not even a question if they take steroids.
Yeah,
it's not even, like, denied. They'll be like, if they have to on, like, the news about it, I don't take steroids. But everywhere else, it's like, of course I do. It's like the conversation they're having with their buddy. It's like, oh, do you got the roids in the bag? Oh, yeah, let's grab some of those out.
But isn't there, like,
let's juice up.
There's actual, like, special divisions in bodybuilding where they're, like, basically the clean league. Like, they specify this is the clean league. So, like, they're not saying the other league is dirty, but why are they calling this the clean league if this other league exists? Do you know what I mean?
I didn't even know that was supposedly out there.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not fooling anyone. You're not fooling anyone for a second. You might fool somebody that's just like a weirdo and they just like to watch, I've never understood bodybuilding. Like in the 70s, when there was like, Arnold Schwarzenegger was literally in the Guinness Book of World Records. You were like looking at him and you're like, oh, that's amazing. And there's almost like, let's see how far this can go.
Yeah.
And now it's like a game of centimeters or millimeters, as opposed to where, when you first saw Arnold Schwarzenegger, like the fact that it was even in Guinness Book of World Records when that was still kind of like becoming a thing. Like that was one of the things that made the Guinness Book of World Records famous. You know what I mean? It's like, it was something that you did, but this is a total sidetrack from the question about, or the statement that Costa is a bodybuilder. But
yeah,
I mean, if he were a real bodybuilder,
Yeah, he wouldn't win competitions. But you know who looks like a bodybuilder now as well? Yeah. Paul Harris.
Oh my God!
Paul, did you see that guy now?
Freaky. It's like freaky.
Yeah.
It doesn't even look. He almost doesn't even look human. Like it just doesn't look right. Like his proportions are so strange. Just like a short guy with a short torso and these just massive arms. It's just like, you're a jiu-jitsu guy. Like this doesn't fit any of the norms. Like you're a jiu-jitsu guy. Like normally you picture like a really skinny, smart, like almost like guy that would be in the tech field type kind of thing. Like John Danaher doesn't look. I mean, obviously he's debilitated through all his training and his knees are just fucked. But like, I feel like that's the kind of like template of what you see, or Gordon Ryan or any of these guys. They look like kind of normal people,
Yeah. It's insane. He fought at 170. I'm gonna get this on the screen because if anybody hasn't seen this,
Harris did.
Yeah. Oh no, 185. Whoa. 185. Sorry, 185.
Okay,
well, maybe
like
for
170 is insane. If he fought at 170,
that'd be insane. But you, the people on the stream should be able to see this now. Jason, you are on a bit of a delay because you're talking to me right now, but you will see it eventually. Yeah. So there's Paul Harris. Look at that guy. Look at that guy. He looks like the Incredible Hulk.
Yes.
But not green.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yeah. And that's the thing about the proportions, because it's like, I mean, if you were to angle the camera up and you were to like remove any relativity and turn him green, you'd be like, yeah, that's that like the inspiration for the Hulk was that guy.
Yeah.
They took one look at him and drew the Hulk after that.
Yeah. I just thought it was hilarious as well, speaking of irony, that when they done the Hulk back in the day, they just colored him green. That's all they had to do. Just color him. Or Lou Ferrigno. Sorry.
Lou Ferrigno, yeah.
Mixing up the two guys.
I wasn't sure if you meant I wasn't sure what you were going for. I was like, do you mean like the original comic strips?
Yeah, no, Lou Ferrigno. They're both in in that bodybuilding movie that I watched recently. Sormer Burke again said, would love to see Jones back, but believe he needs to serve a long suspension first. Can't mess up time after time and get away with it with a retrospective 1 year ban. Do you agree with that?
I mean, I think if it happens, where he gets popped again, especially, I mean, if it's 5 years down the line, then I think it would be a lot different, because, I mean, he would probably just get 2 years for that, and probably his career would be done by then anyways. Because, I mean, was he like 33, 30? No, he's like 31. So he'd be like 38 by the time he got back out, and people have fought later than that. But I'm saying if this was hypothetically 5 years down the line, but if he popped like at his next fight, then yeah, his career would like legitimately probably be done.
Yeah,
like it'd be like we've given you the benefit of the doubt as much as we can. It's just no remorse.
Are we at that point though with John Jones where it's like, the little kid, your little son, and you're like, one more chance and you're grounded, and it just keeps going, just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling until he just like, Jones is already wild, but it's
like the classic counting to 5 thing. But
exactly.
It's fun when you get to 5 and you're like, what do I do now?
There's some questions above this, and I will go back to them. Don't worry, guys. But I just think it's hilarious looking at the reaction to Paul Harris. Sore Mr. Burke said he looks like a juiced up Wario.
Wow, yeah, because like
that is hilarious. Yeah. That's hilarious. Man, he does look like a juiced up Wario. That's one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Thanks, man. I'm gonna go back up because there's some good questions there, and there was somebody who I wanted to answer. Killian Cunningham, Jesus, messed that one up, said, hi guys, long time listener, first time poster. Any thoughts on Edgar versus Korean Zombie? I almost forgot that this was signed and sealed for the 10th of November. Very interesting fight.
You almost forgot. I totally forgot.
Yeah.
It just hasn't been on my mind lately. Man. So the Korean Zombie, let's look up what his record was, because it's like one of those things. He had that mandatory service.
The mandatory service came back,
and he fought. Yeah.
Bermudez finished Bermudez in the first round, which is impressive.
Yeah. Wow. So that was February of last year already. That's so weird that that's already been that long.
Yeah.
He had to have had some sort of injury that I'm forgetting about. But either way, I mean, like, the guy who probably put the best fight on Jose Aldo, sub. I mean, obviously, you could argue that Mendez in the second fight put on a better performance, but because the fact that he made it all the way through the fight, Zhang, his issue was obviously his leg messed up on him, and then he was just done. It's kind of like the Patrick Cote Anderson Silva fight, where Patrick Cote was doing really well against Anderson Silva, and then all of a sudden he just stepped on his leg wrong and he was out for the count. It's like one of those kind of things where he might have. I don't know. I honestly can't remember what rounds he was winning, but that's how good he is. And then he also knocked out Mark Hominick with like one punch back. I remember that being a huge deal because Mark Hominick was coming off this Jose Aldo fight, and he had a pregnancy coming out of his forehead from that massive hematoma. Yeah. But he was taking it to Jose in those last rounds. That was at the Rogers Center for UFC 129. So I mean, this is the kind of stuff that he's capable of. And specifically the Jose Aldo one is really important because of the fact that, I mean, he looked pretty much untouchable prior to that. And not to say that the Korean Zombie, that Zhang was like going to take him out or it was about to happen, but he was doing really well and it was a really competitive fight, which was really exciting. I don't know that I could say that about either of Edgar's fights. And this is, of course, MMA math comparing their, similar matchups. But I mean, yeah. I mean, it's a really compelling fight, and it's incredibly hard to say. And those are the best ones where you're like, I can't look directly at this and just say, I know who's going to win. I really could see it going either way. I think maybe my edge is going to be on Frankie, just through activity, just through being a former title holder. And despite that last loss to Ortega, he's had a stellar career. It's just one of those things where the guys are just so goddamn, good at the top. So yeah, I'm willing to say Frankie Edgar takes it by a slight edge, but
potentially. I think Edgar is probably, again, he's been active, so that's always a good thing. It was a knee injury that took Chan Sung Jung out, I believe. So he's been out a long time, but we've seen that him being out a long time isn't necessarily a problem. He came back against Dennis Bermudez and wins very, very impressively. And didn't look like he lost anything. And I'm sure he still got time to train. I believe when he basically went for that service, the mandatory military service, I believe he said that he could still train. So it wasn't like he was just completely out and couldn't do anything. And same thing here. He can still train with a knee injury, just obviously a lot lighter, and he can't really do too much work on it. But it's an incredible fight. It's two really, really exciting guys in a fight that makes a whole lot of sense for the division. Like, Korean Zombie's been out for so long, but he's still a player in that division, and a lot of people have forgot about him. If he can beat Frankie Edgar, he's right up there. And then look at the killers who's at featherweight right now, like the Ortegas, the Max Holloways, the Moicanos. I love Moicano. Moicano's a great fighter. So there's a lot of ways they can go with it. I'll probably pick Edgar, but man, that is a really, really good fight.
That's turning into, like, 145 is turning into the new 155. Like, it kind of had like a slow arch and then exploded with Conor McGregor. But despite the fact that he left the division, went to 155, the division, like, I don't know if it's just all that attention there, or people were like looking at how much of a skeleton Conor looked like after the weigh-ins.
Jesus Christ.
Shit, I can make 145. Poirier was down there too at one point, but I mean, it's just one of those divisions that it just seems like it's gotten really, really dangerous.
Yeah.
In the past couple of years, lots of relativity in that division.
There was also, if you look on the screen now, I have it up here. Remember, Korean Zombie absolutely blew Joe Rogan's mind when he hit a twister.
Oh yeah. What? Eddie Bravo submission. Yeah.
And he's like, somewhere Eddie Bravo's gonna be happy.
Yeah, that was a great moment. Absolutely, and that was the redemption fight because a lot of people thought he won the first Leonard Garcia fight. So that was the resounding, kind of affirmation of that.
What's up with Leonard Garcia, like, fighting guys and, like, he fights them, he gets beat up, and they just give him a decision? I think it's just his activity or something, isn't it? It's weird.
Nam Fan is the one I really remember. Nam Fan. That was so bad. Yeah, dude, that guy was. I'm almost not mad at it just because of how good the Korean Zombie fight still was. And then you got the Roger Huerta fight. I mean, that guy was just a absolute fight of the night machine. Like, just incredible fights with Leonard Garcia. So good.
Rafa, aka the Booty Whisperer. Phenomenal name. Keep it. Officially change your name to that, please. The Booty Whisperer. Thoughts about Nick Diaz saying he's focused on his return. Might be the mysterious UFC 230 headliner. And if so, what would the interest in Nick be in 2018?
Dude, could you imagine if Nick and Nate Diaz headlined a card? Like,
Man.
if like, there's a part of me that's just almost like just bust a massive smile because that just sounds incredible. I definitely doubt it. I'll say that, but man, that would be insane. I mean, I tend to think he's for real about it. You know, his brother's fighting now. His brother took a long layoff too, and I tend to think. I mean, he was somebody that complained about money all the time. Like, he complained about money way more, despite the fact that, you know, Nate made 20 and 20 to fight Michael Johnson, 20,000 to show. That's insane. Which, that's all he was guaranteed. Wow. If he lost, he would have left with 20,000, which ridiculous.
Stupid.
So he had the win bonus of the 20 grand. Just absolutely insane. But before that, you know, like I remember famously, you know, when Nick Diaz didn't show up to the GSP press conference, he was talking about how he didn't get paid enough on this kind of stuff. It was reported that he made nearly $1 million through his sponsorships and his guarantee. And, you know, I can't remember if they got fight of the night, but whatever. It all, in one way or another, amounted up to at least $1 million. But, you know, that being said, I think over that, I mean, if you see the guy's Instagram, he's out every single night. That guy is partying like crazy. Like, I don't know that he's necessarily the wild one, but he's out at the club, like literally every single night on his Instagram. You see the lights, you see him, you know,
speaking
like
of,
around a bunch of people.
I don't want to cut you off, but speaking of, that just reminded me of something. Reese McKee, who's an Irish fighter, he must have been on holiday in the States or something, but he took a picture with Nick Diaz very recently and put it up on Instagram. We put it on our Facebook page, and a lot of people commented on it. Well, one person commented on Facebook, a few people commented on Reese's original post, thinking that Nick looked very, very scrawny. I'd like to get your take on it, and obviously people in the chat as well. But yeah, you can continue with your thoughts while I get this up on the screen.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's really interesting. Most of the stuff I've seen from him, if I'm being honest, lately have been something of that nature. Like, he was on TMZ like a year ago or something like that, talking about how GSP not only a juice, not only was like a pound over. And there's actually a lot of, you know, fire where that smoke is of GSP, like being in Canada, getting more than just a pound leeway, but like 3 pounds leeway. Like and obviously it's like hearsay. We didn't see the scale. We did see that it was at least 1 pound over. Like, there was one famous screenshot of that, but like, it's like one of those kind of weird things where it's like, okay, this is, you know, that you can almost kind of accept that. But then when he started jumping into the fact that he was like drugged, and like they put stuff into like you know, his pre-workout or whatever it was that kind of like drugged him before that fight, and it's like, dude, come on. Like, you're being put in this title fight off of a loss. He lost to Carlos Condit. I don't care, you know, it doesn't matter how controversial that was, but the idea that they weren't trying to promote him and they were trying to keep him down just wasn't true. But I guess all this to wrap up to say is I think he's for real about the fight. I think he does, you know, need the money. I don't think he's like broke or anything. But, I mean, if you think about it, it's been since, 2015 since he last fought. You can only make so much money off of appearances and going to places and, you know, doing autograph signings, which is basically what he's done. Yeah,
that's on the screen there. I can't wait for Nick Diaz's return, personally. I've always been a big Nick Diaz fan. I love the way he fights. And I think it'd be a great shot in the arm for the UFC to get him back. And if he does headline that 230, the only reason why I think it's possible, I don't really think it's possible, but the only reason why I think the UFC might push for it, if they can, is because Nate Diaz right now is the type of guy who's getting offended by a lot of things, especially the UFC's decisions. If the UFC puts somebody that he doesn't see worthy over him in the main event, you know he's going to complain. If they put Nick over him in the main event, he'll be all over that. He'll love that. He'll be like, yeah, this is the Nick show. He loves it. Loves it.
Nate would love that, yeah, because, I mean, he calls Nick the best fighter on the planet. You know, he looks up to his brother, which is admirable.
He's Nick's biggest fan. Nate's Nick's biggest fan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Looking at this photo, though, man, I don't think it's that bad.
Either do I.
I think he looks lean.
He does look very lean.
They're not muscular guys. And I think, your boy's in decent shape there, too, or he's just a little bit closer to the camera to where it's like
the angle.
His forearm. Yeah, like his forearm looks like it's the same size as, Diaz's bicep. But, I mean, they're very lean guys. It's like, and Nate Diaz said this, and this isn't necessarily what Nick Diaz is like, but he says on his worst day, he trains a couple hours every single day.
Yeah.
On his worst day, and this was not long after he'd been on that layoff. Because, I mean, what was it, 4 months after the Michael Johnson fight? And before that, he hadn't fought for over a year and a half. It's been since, I want to say it was the Rafael dos Anjos, the RDA fight. So he'd been off for like a year and a half. And for somebody to be saying that, it sounds like it's pretty well true. That, I mean, they are triathletes. That's one of their hobbies. That's what they like to do. It's kind of like when you see Chuck Liddell, he talks about how he doesn't like to sit still. He likes to be moving around, and he's kind of antsy when you see him in interviews. He's like moving back and forth, and it's almost kind of dizzying. But like, I think that's who they are. I think he's in shape. I think he's lean is what I think he is. I don't think he's frail. I think that's his body figure. Yeah, to be honest, it's just always been that way.
I feel the same as well. And he's also a triathlon athlete, so I'm sure he's still doing a lot of that. There's a lot of good questions up above, and there's loads more down. So I want to just go through a few that are above, so we can get back down to the end and we can get into these. While I have everybody here, I don't like doing this at the start and also at the end, because at the start I don't want to annoy you. At the end, everybody leaves. So if you can, subscribe to the channel now. We do 2 shows a week, one that's released on a Tuesday and one that's one that's live during the week, like this one. So do it now and give it a share and all that jazz. There was one question, can't find it now, but I'm interested as well. A quick one. What's your favorite video you've done for MMA On Point?
Oh yeah, I did see somebody ask that. That is such a tough question. In some ways, I think it's actually, I'm not even kidding, my very first video.
Wow.
Like the very first one that I put up. Yeah. It's that Demetrius Johnson one, because, I mean, like, I put so much work into that. There was so much more. There's so much thought into that. And then recently I've had some ones that I've really liked. I know people got pissed off about the Pride versus, like UFC soundtrack one. I was just really proud of those titles, really proud of those headlines. I feel like a lot of our best work is still on the way, and I think it's hard not to hold that in a special place that Demetrius Johnson one was. And I remember so many people were telling me it's like the channel's not going to work, it's not going to take off. And I remember saying to myself, I feel like this could get a couple 100,000 views. Like if I really put some work into it, and it's almost at 500,000 views now. So there's there's your heartfelt answer there. Very, very proud of that.
I'll give Jason the plug as well. Go check out MMA On Point. It's one of my favorite YouTube channels out there, and that's not just saying that. It's true. Actually, comment on one of your videos very early in your tenure, I guess, and so yeah, find it. Proof.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, look it up. There's loads of questions. Aidan Mack is great. Jason, are you related to the great fly fishing author of the same name, J.R. Hartley? Stumbled upon him in the Yellow Pages.
Yeah, I saw that comment. Dude, I'm probably the last person that you could ever talk to about game and, fishing and all that kind of stuff. It's like, I've gone fishing before, but that's about it. I feel like I've heard that name before. I don't know. I don't have a clue. But
he's not your great uncle anyway.
If you're looking it up in the Yellow Pages, you have to live in Tennessee, because or else I'm not coming up. So
Aidan is 100% Irish. Aidan, where are you from actually? I've always wondered that. What great county are you from? I don't think you're from Dublin, but I'd wonder. Aman Jagdev said, Moicano is defo the dark horse of the 145-pound division. Was beating Ortega before that city takedown attempt. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why, not the reason you don't do MMA math when you're making picks, but that was one of the things we brought up when we were talking about Moicano against Jeremy Stevens. Am I right? Yeah, Jeremy Stevens. He's a phenomenal fighter, and he's only lost one fight against a really tough guy, a really great prospect in Ortega, and he was beating Ortega up on the feet. I think he's definitely the dark horse of 145 pounds. The only thing against him, and not against him in in terms of his talent, but against him in terms of how popular he can get, is that he doesn't speak a whole lot of English. And unfortunately, because the UFC is an American product, you got to speak English to get popular, unless you're someone like Anderson, who got there on sheer talent, or like Fedor, who got really popular just because he had that mystique. But I don't think Moicano has that type of thing. You know, he could be one of the best fighters in the world at some point, but I don't think he has that mystique that those guys had. So get that Duolingo app and learn some English.
Yeah, we can't all be like Rafael Schaefer, who's Brazilian and also speaks English in the chat here. Yeah, it's like one of those kind of things, you know, you think about the people that were famous that don't speak English. They've all had incredible records, or even broken English, like Khabib, you know, who's 26-0 right now. Anderson, Fedor. It's like you either have to have this just incredible style like Apollo Costa, where you're just smashing the fuck out of people, or you have to have this just sustained dominance. Or else it's just really hard to get behind somebody who's not American. And in the casual fans' eyes, I think he's great too. I mean, that's his only loss, Brian Ortega. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so fantastic.
Great fighter, and I'd love to see the Moicano versus Ortega again. I'd love to see Moicano versus Max Holloway if possible. There's a lot of fights there for him, and obviously if the winner of the Korean Zombie versus Frankie Edgar, that could be the next one for Moicano. If it doesn't happen, I know Moicano actually asked for the Jose Aldo fight. Said Jose Aldo is basically his idol in MMA. That is a great fight. You can argue that, you know, it could be the whole old lion being fed to the young lion, but two very similar fighters in a way. Moicano's probably just a new level of what Jose Aldo was, but do you like that fight?
I love the fight. I could definitely see it from Jose's like corner, just being like, hey, let's get a bigger name. Let's get closer to that title. This Moicano guy's kind of risky, and he's not a big name. Just for all the reasons that we just, you know, laid out of not being an English speaker and being a English, you know, based promotion, English speaking based. I mean,
yeah.
Dana White's British. I don't know if you guys knew that. So it's like one of those kind of things where I think it's a risky thing for Jose Aldo. I don't think he would take the fight. I think he would want to go after, nip at the heels of somebody like Ortega if he could, you know, but Moicano makes a lot of sense. I just don't know if he would necessarily want to do it.
Thomas Peart said, with Woodley versus Till coming soon, who do you have winning that?
I've said, you know, pretty on multiple occasions that I think Woodley can basically match Till on the feet just out of sheer power alone. Like, I think we saw what he did to Robbie Lawler. I mean, just think of all the wars Robbie Lawler was in against kickboxers like Condit, or just incredible MMA athletes like Rory McDonald. To be honest, I did think Conor won that fight, so maybe that's not the best example. But when you watch it back, it was just a damn close fight, and you can see how that would have fell either way on the judges' scorecards. But it is one of those things, you know, where, I mean, he stood up from all that, and he took one punch, and he was done. So and then we saw Wonderboy. Wonderboy almost got knocked out by him twice, and Wonderboy, prior to those fights, I mean, we saw what he did we saw what he did to Rory McDonald, actually. We saw what he did to Johnny Hendricks. I mean, Johnny Hendricks, that was a mind-blowing performance. It's one of those things, just seeing how he matches up against strikers, I don't think he has any problems on the feet. I think that, I'm not saying he won't have any problems. I'm just saying, like, on paper, sure, he can match up against anybody on the feet. You know, Till might knock him out. And to be honest, I'm more of a Till fan. I would like Till to win. I've not been a big fan of Woodley as champion. You know, the fact that he called out a money fight as soon as he got the belt, I wasn't big on that. It's like your number one contender, who everybody already wants to see fight you, is there talking to you, and you say, I don't want to fight you. I want to fight two retired guys or semi-retired guys. Not a good look. And he's just kind of always been a bit too whiny for me. That's just my honest opinion. So I would like to see Till win, but I think Woodley's better rounded from what we've seen. You know, on the conference call yesterday, Till said that his wrestling is way underrated and that he's actually a really good wrestler offensively as well as defensively. You know, we say that a lot of times with strikers, where they can keep it on the feet. Like, Chuck Liddell was a great, wrestler in college, but he never used offensive wrestling.
Yeah. It was all defensive.
So, all defensive. Same with Conor. Like when you look at the Alvarez fight, Chad Mendes fight, not a good example, but so in my opinion, I think Woodley has more opportunities, more ways to do it, and it's hard for me to pick against that. So I have Woodley winning it.
To be honest, I had Woodley going in, and I'm just leaning more and more towards Till as it comes closer, just for a few reasons. One of the things you mentioned, obviously, was that the way Woodley fights, he doesn't fight like a normal wrestler. He does like to strike, and he's done that against some guys like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who it seemed like Stephen Thompson, in terms of competing against Tyron Woodley, it's just not a great fight for him for whatever reason. It just doesn't seem like a great fight. But the more and more I think back to that Wonderboy fight versus Darren Till, the more and more I'm impressed with what Darren Till could do to Wonderboy. Wonderboy has been for a long time probably the most impressive striker in that division. And although you can argue that Wonderboy might have won the fight and he was fighting more counter fighter than he fought against Woodley, but Darren Till consistently kept the pressure on him, kept him against the cage, something that Wonderboy could do against Woodley, and it's something that I think Till is going to do as well against Woodley, because Woodley doesn't mind being up against that cage. And I just think that the longer you fight with your back against the cage, especially against a striker, and a striker with pretty good power like Till, I think there's a chance you can get caught there. Woodley could come out and he should start shooting for takedowns maybe, and I think that could be a good idea to maybe mix it up a bit more, because he hasn't been mixing it up. But the more and more it's getting close to it, the more and more I'm feeling Till might actually get it done. So we'll see. Next week we're gonna preview it. So the episode will be out Tuesday. I'll have more of a think about it and give the official pick, I guess. But yeah, great fight.
Cool. Yeah, great fight.
Ahmed Jadev said Till too drained and haven't seen his takedown defense and grappling yet. So yeah, it's a good point. I wonder what Till's weight cut is going to look like, and obviously we haven't really seen what his grappling looks like.
Yeah, I actually don't think that the weight cut is going to be too much of an issue. I think it's just
he's going to fix it.
That guy can't think for even a second without someone asking him about it. It's like, and I don't. It's well deserved. Yes. You came in that heavy for your last fight. You do deserve the criticism. And the thing is, at every turn, he's admitted that. He said, yeah, I deserve that for my last fight. He's never said it's annoying or anything like that. On the conference call, somebody asked him that outright. And he said, you know what? I'm fine with it. I messed up bad. And I just don't see any way with that much constant pressure and that much motivation. And then the guy lives his life in camp. I doubt that he's slacking at all. And I imagine almost as much as the fight, Conor McGregor said back in the day, the real fight was getting down in weight. I think it's gotten to that level with Darren Till where he's just like, there's no way I'm not making weight. There's no way,
I've just pulled up a picture, and hopefully you can see it now in a second, Jason, but the people in the chat will see it when they see this, obviously. Bit of a delay. But it's a picture that just recently went up. It went up today, 2 hours ago, of Darren Till looking in really, really good shape, looking really, really lean, and he's a week out. Yeah. He looks really good. That's probably a good sign that the weight cut has gone well, but he looks in shape. He doesn't look as bloated as he did last time on the week of fight, so I think maybe he'll be okay this time.
This is how fucked up weight cutting is. That's the biggest guy in that room.
Yeah.
And that guy is fighting at 170.
Yeah.
Like, he should be a 185er. If he loses, I think he'll stick around. I don't think he'll want to go up to 185. It almost feels like a concession. I've been defeated by the division, almost that kind of thing. But, God, he's just... It's insane that guy, and he's highlighted too, because he's the only guy without his shirt on. He's the guy without a shirt in the room.
Yeah,
and it just illuminates it that much more how big he is.
He's enormous. He's absolutely enormous.
Yeah, he's a monster for that division. Just absolutely insane. So,
yeah, it's insane.
It was great.
Yeah. And a lot of talk about Joe Rogan going on. Joe Rogan and Brendan Schaub going on in the chat. Did Brendan Schaub do something again this week, or is it still the backlash from everything that Brendan Schaub says, I guess?
God, yeah.
Yeah.
I was saying earlier, I really have a desire to rant about this Logan Paul thing. I feel like I've just gone on so much that we've gotten so far on the comments. Maybe if we have more time, maybe I'll go on that rant. But
yeah, we will go on the rant. We have about, I'd say, 20 minutes left, and we'll let you go on that rant because I know it's been seething. But you also have an admirer, Rafa, aka the Booty Whisperer. No better admirer. MMA on Point is one of the greatest channels on YouTube, in my opinion. Reminds me of MMA's version of Boxing Legends TV. Keep it up, Jason. Fire emoji.
Fuck yeah. Man, I hope beyond hope that at some day the one thing that Boxing Legends TV, like, they have a great channel, they got great knowledge, they got great in-depth, but they have free reign over every boxing fight they ever want to show footage from. That's the thing we get absolutely killed by. We'd be so much bigger if the UFC just had a PR policy about fair use, like any other company that exists out there. Nintendo's maybe the only exception, but there was, I've talked about this before, but Blockbuster, like all this, they got sued by the movie companies when they first came out because they thought it was going to be the death of all their movies, and it turned people into fanatics about movies. You have all these channels now that are all about this because they can stop, they can pause, they can rewind, and the movie industries have 100% embraced the fact, and so have video games. This is an advertisement for your product, and it's free.
It's different as well. Like, it's different that if you went and you took last night's event and just put it up as your own, that's a different thing altogether. Like, that's okay. Yes, that's not fair use. We cannot use that. But you have to be logical about it. There is a line there for fair use that you should be able to use,
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I get it. I get it, if, like, we show, like, Ronda Rousey when she got head kicks. I get that. It's like, you wait until that's on Fight Pass and that's no longer on the pay-per-view circuit. That's just like a respect thing. If you do show it, be aggressive towards those. But, like, if you're putting up content of a fight that happened 10 years ago, dude, like, I swear we're driving people to Fight Pass. It's like, I'm not endorsing Fight Pass. I don't necessarily say that that's the best.
Do you work for Fight Pass?
It is the best place to do it. I work for Fight Pass, but it's just such a shame because I think we would be so much closer to one of those boxing channels. And you notice a lot of other channels have done this that do. I mean, you could not get any more literal a definition of fair use than someone doing a technique breakdown on a fight. And I've seen guys do this where it's a frame by frame analysis. BJJ Scout has this happen to him all the time where people pull his content down, like UFC does. It's like, dude, like, that guy he's actually hyping the Khabib Conor fight. He's been doing a series on Khabib and Conor. He's actually done more videos on Khabib that are so eye-opening and so fascinating. And the UFC's pulling this stuff down. It's insane. It's mind-blowing. Yeah,
it happened actually with Brendan Dorman. Brendan Dorman had like thousands and thousands and thousands of subscribers on his original channel. Same thing happened. He had technique breakdowns, and the UFC pulled it, and basically he had to start from scratch. It's insane. Speaking of Brendan Dorman, Raphael Schaefer said Brendan Dorman did a great breakdown of Moicano recently. Haven't checked it out. I've been holding it for the weekend, so I'm going to watch that, but everybody check that out as well. The Booty Whisperer is back. Thoughts about the Tony versus Pettis matchup for UFC 229? Do you think the possibility is it's a possibility he rushed his return to be on the same card as Khabib versus Conor? Speaking of Tony, obviously.
Yeah, because he had, the big leg injury. Yeah. That's the real question, The example I used last week is that people have recovered from ACL injuries in 6 months, an MCL, I believe is what it was. Or somebody had commented last week that it might have been an LCL, and I didn't take the time to actually look and see if that's what it was. But either way, ACL is a more, kind of in-depth injury that sometimes takes people years to recover from, but people recovered in 6 months. So I think it's very, very possible that he is just that much of a madman where he, he's just an incredible fighter, to come back from that, I see fully in the realm of his capability. But if he does lose, it's going to put an asterisk on that fight. Pettis, I mean, he'll be overjoyed because he'll be like, Jesus, I just kind of came out of nowhere and here I am in title contention again. Because he's on, I think, a 1-fight win streak right now.
Yeah.
Not a streak. So, yeah. We talked about that a lot last week, but I think it's hopefully I'm hyped for it. And, for 229, I think it helps the card a lot.
Yeah, we spoke about it a lot, and I put out a small clip from when me and Noel talked about it this week as well. Yeah. If you want to check that out, go to the channel, check it out after this. Stay here and then check it out after this. We gave our opinion on why we think Pettis shouldn't be underrated too much coming into the fight. There was a question there. I just saw it. It was about that Logan Paul guy. What's your thoughts on Logan Paul calling out Sage Northcutt and Sage replying? Here we go. Let's open it up. Logan Paul, what's the crack with Logan Paul?
Jesus Christ. I feel like I built this up in my mind so much that it's just like, oh man, where do I even start?
I'll sit back.
It's disappointing how quickly, and I tweeted about this earlier too, so there's a bit of a broken record here, but it's disappointing how quickly MMA media and fighters have just jumped on this.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, what is it, maybe not even 2 months ago, we're complaining about CM Punk fighting. And here we are egging this on. And nothing against your question, Thomas, there, but it's, and I'm talking about now, I realize the irony of that too. But you have to be able to comment on something when you see a community, doing strange behavior. You have to be able to say it's kind of ridiculous that we're complaining about this money fight era and that the right fights aren't being made. And even the Colby Covington case or whatever else you want to think, all these interim titles, all these strange things. And then here we are latching on the moment a celebrity, he's a YouTube guy. I'm on YouTube too, so I'm not knocking the platform.
I'm on the YouTube.
We're on YouTube right now, but it's one of those things where it's and I get Brendan Schaub's argument that, he's even a better athlete than CM Punk. So it's conceivable that they would go after him. But, this is not what we want.
Exactly.
Logan Paul has 18,000. That would be amazing if that was all it was. He has 18 million subscribers.
Wow.
And from almost all the indications, they're all kids. There's this video of him at VidCon 2017 and H3H3. I follow his channel, so he made fun of this a lot, or else I wouldn't even know about it. But there's this video of him at VidCon getting chased by these preteen girls and little kids who probably just got done playing Yu-Gi-Oh before they got there. This is the age group of this guy. None of us like Logan Paul. And so it's one of these kind of things you see Ariel Helwani tweeting about it. You see even some small channels tweeting about it. I see guys from ESPN. I mean, obviously Ariel is that. I saw Sandu. Was it Chapman Carr? Sandu. I'm sure I'm saying his first name wrong.
Yeah,
tweeting about it.
Sandu,
I met the guy. Yeah, I've met that guy. I like him. He's a great guy.
Hilarious story before you continue. Do you know, when I was about, I'd say, I don't know when it was a long time ago, before I started proper covering the sport, he actually interviewed me at some weigh-in or something randomly, and then I figured out that he worked he joined MMA Junkie a lot later, but then I saw him and I was like, that's so weird. That's such a small world. Anyway, just thought that was funny. Continue.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tom, from MMA On Point as well, used to work with him at MMA Junkie, and then we went to Bellator 200. I got the chance to meet him because we were all working press for that, and he's an extremely nice guy. Really, really nice guy. But even still though, all these members of media from big ticket guys, I mean, these guys are from ESPN. Both him and Ariel are on MMA Junkie. It's on the homepage right now. MMA Fighting has been clean about it. I haven't seen them posting about it, but it's none of us are even in the age group for Logan Paul. We don't like Logan Paul. We don't want this. And I get that we're just kind of joking and we're tweaking it out, and Sage Northcutt is responding to him and he called him Sage North, but whatever. But all this weird shit's happening. And my whole thing about it is the more and more we talk about him, and again, I'm kind of criticizing the fact that we're talking about him. So I'm not even necessarily talking about Logan Paul so much as the fact that we're calling him out. And Cormier did the same with one of his guys. He wants one of his up and coming friends to fight him. It's
sad.
like if it's one thing if the same guy who is it, Oscar De La Hoya, if he does it with Golden Gloves Promotions or MMA, whatever he's calling it, for the Tito Ortiz Chuck Liddell fight, it's
Golden
one thing
Boy.
if Golden Boy, yeah. What do they call it? Golden Gloves?
Golden Gloves, yeah.
Golden Boy. Golden Gloves is like that local kind of thing. But like it's like one of these things where it's one thing if it goes off somewhere else, but we complain so often as a community. It's like this dichotomous viewpoint where we complain all the time when these money fight type kind of situations come through, and everyone gave CM Punk so much shit. And then here is everybody doing, and I don't think they necessarily want it to happen. I don't think a lot of people want the Logan Paul kind of thing to happen in the UFC. But by talking about him, by tweeting about him, by making all these stories about him, by giving it attention, by liking all these posts that he's interacting with people on. I even got tagged in a moment on it. I wasn't even trying to do so. I was just criticizing what Brendan Schaub said about how, he was a better promoter in the UFC.
Yeah.
No, he's just a celebrity.
Yeah.
It's like, the example I used was Justin Bieber and somebody from One Direction. I don't know a more culturally new or relevant example than that. That's about as recent as I can go. But it's
Post
just
Malone or something.
Post Malone, yeah, there you go. Post Malone's pretty legit.
Yeah, he's pretty good actually.
But it's like one of these kind of things where it's like, we don't want this to happen, but we're making it happen. Like this might actually happen.
You're giving it credence when you cover it.
Yeah, yeah. And so like my criticism is of the community. Like if Logan Paul puts out a video, and I made sure that we didn't do one on MMA On Point because I didn't want to give the guy free promotion. Like I get it that he's doing this YouTube thing and he's having fun with it and stuff like that. But like, we're an MMA channel. I don't want it to bleed over into my sport. And if I don't know. I just don't want it to happen. I don't want him to be in the UFC. If he wants to do a one-off thing in MMA against somebody else, or even if the UFC started doing charity MMA events where they wear like headgear or something like that, it was like a tamer version. It's like the playoffs of any major sport. It's like the Premier League throwing in a random team full of celebrities into the tournament in place of someone else. You know what I mean? It's like someone else should be on that main card, not them. And every fight in a fighter's like experience is a playoff fight. Every one of it is extremely important because that sets you years back when you lose, especially like somebody like John Fitch, who didn't lose to anybody in like 7 years, but George St. Pierre, and didn't get a title shot throughout that other 7 years. I'm ranting like crazy. I'll let you. I know you've been trying to say something there, so.
No, I completely agree. Like I get why people cover it. 100%, I get why people cover it. It gets clicks, and at the end of the day, if you're a writer for xmma.com or whatever MMA site you're working for, your editor is going to be looking for articles and videos and audio on that because he looks at Google Trends, he sees that it's trending for whatever reason, and they're going to cover it. If they don't cover it, say if MMA Junkie don't cover it, MMA Fighting will cover it, you lose out. So I get it from the editor's point of view, but I also get it from your point of view, and I think it's from our point of view, kind of YouTube people and people who are kind of just doing some kind of form of MMA media off their own back, is that it's a good thing that we don't have to talk about it. I know we're talking about it now, which is ironic, but I mean, we don't have to create videos. We don't have to give so much time to it that we don't want to give to it because we're not being told by anybody not to do it. That's what I love about doing this channel, is that me and Noel just do the channel. It's ours. We can do whatever we want with it. What we do doesn't really affect anything else in our lives. It's just it's a thing that we love to do. If people watch it and like it, that'd be awesome. If they don't, what can you do? It's something that I wanted to do. So that's what I like about this kind of thing, and your channel is, if you don't want to do a video on Logan Paul, you're not going to do a video on Logan Paul. But unfortunately for those big MMA websites, they have editors, they have people that need clicks, ad revenue, money. But
they don't though. They don't. I would push back and say that they don't. MMA is fine without Logan Paul. It's existed.
Oh, absolutely.
Since 1993, and obviously it was in
FOMO,
the dark
though,
ages and
isn't it?
all that stuff.
It's almost that FOMO thing for other websites. It's the fear of missing out on covering it. They feel like they have to do it because everyone else is. Once one big website picks it up, everybody else is. I have had it with our show before. We've had interviews where we're like, okay, we put the interview out there, it's doing well, but then MMA Fighting picks it up. And then MMA Junkie picks it up. Everybody picks it up. It's a similar thing. Once one big website does it, everybody follows suit. It's the way it works.
Right. Yeah. I'm glad MMA Fighting hasn't actually done an article on it.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen them do it. It's like when you're publishing articles and things like that, my concern is you're actually creating interest. You're now signifying to the world that you should be paying attention to this because everyone's talking about it, and you're all like, oh, can you believe it? It's like the example I use. It's like in one breath, it's like, oh no, we don't want that to happen. We don't want him to come here. But in the next breath, you're saying, oh, did you see what Logan Paul said though?
Yeah, I know.
I'm not even talking about what Logan Paul said. I offhand said about one of his pictures. What I'm saying is, like, if you don't want this to happen, stop making articles about it. Stop making videos about it. Stop retweeting things that Logan Paul says. Stop retweeting all that stuff. Like, and from my point of view, it's like, yeah, I mean, one of these things could be fun, but I don't want it a part of a pro league. I don't want to watch the NBA playoffs and one of the teams gets knocked out so they can make room for a celebrity team. Like, I want to see the best fighters in the world fight against each other in the premier organization in the world. If you want to go do that somewhere else, that's one thing, but just don't bring it to the UFC. And if the UFC wants to start doing charity events, that's another thing.
Yeah, go do that. Yeah.
Like, don't make it. Don't say, this is where the best fighters in the world are. Next up, Logan Paul versus KSI. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you're messing up your own branding. And I think it's the most bankrupt thing because, yes, it does get attention. It does get clicks. It gets all these things. But devalues your sport because now you've got the guy who's famous for one thing, and that's for going into a suicide forest and showing a dead person's body. Like, most people know him because of that. His subscriber base, he was already big, but it chumped up.
Really?
Magnifying. Like, it went up. It actually went up. Yeah. It's kind of like when Chick-fil-A went through the whole, like their CEO said disparaging comments about, like the lesbian and gay community. Like, they actually, their sales went up. Like, controversy does sell things.
It does, yeah.
A lot of people don't like to, acknowledge that side of things, but it does exist, and it's just one of these super annoying things where it's like, yeah, that actually got him more people on board because they kind of wanted to see what the crazy shit he would do next. And that's, do you want to get in bed with that? And I know it's fighting, I know they've had crazy shit. I mean, the UFC, a lot of people don't remember this, but Kimbo Slice, Gannon was the name of that cop that he fought, that a lot of people thought beat Kimbo Slice. They brought him in for one fight and he got smashed. It was almost kind of like an embarrassing thing. It was like, oh, that was a bad idea. Like, if you want to be the premier fighting organization in the world, be that. Yeah. Other organizations like Bellator, I realize they're in a gray area, but I was never on board with Ken Shamrock versus Royce Gracie 3. So it's like one of these things, like, you're a legit league that has the best fighters in the world, or you're a spectacle. And that's not what I've signed up for. Like, I remember watching the GSP fights. The first fight I remember watching on a pay-per-view that I wasn't just somewhere, like I went somewhere intentionally to go watch, was Chuck Liddell versus Tito Ortiz, their second fight. That's what I got introduced to the sport as. And so what the fuck are we doing with this other stuff? And I can have fun. Like, I can watch McGregor fight Mayweather. Like, I was on board with that. We made videos for that. There are exceptions that can exist, but it wasn't in the UFC either. It's like, you're the Premier League or you're not. And it's the end of the day. That's what it is. And as fans, the more and more we peddle this stuff and the more and more we push it, the bigger and bigger deal we make out of it, and the more of a reality we make it. Even if it's just fun, we're just egging it on. It tells people that when you read Logan Paul's name, to click that article. It tells people, oh, he might be coming to the UFC. And next thing you know, he is doing it for real. So it's like, I'm speaking to a smaller base here, but I may actually make a video on this, ironically. Like, because I'm basically, the idea is it's this dichotomy. We hated CM Punk. We hated the fact that he came to the UFC, and we're all about Logan Paul. And it's not that we're about Logan Paul, but we're all about retweeting him, and we're all about sharing everything. And it just make a video with, like, this is the only Logan Paul MMA video I will make, something like that. And just give your thoughts and finish it there. One more on Logan Paul, just because it's not directly related to him. Did you see what Logan Paul said?
Yeah, did you see what he did? Suicide Forest. It's not directly related to him. Well, it is and it isn't. So we'll do that, and then we'll answer some more actual MMA questions and get back to that. Do you think that the fact that now multiple fighters have called out Logan Paul highlights the issue of fighter salary in MMA, in the MMA world? I don't think they're interested in Paul, only the paycheck. Completely agree. Why does anybody in their right mind who's a professional fighter want to fight a guy who's not a professional fighter? There has to be some kind of incentive. You don't want to be that guy to beat up the amateur. You don't want to be that guy because you're going to come off bad. But you know that if you fight that guy, you're going to make some money to fight that guy. So, yeah, I think it does, to be honest.
Well, the fact is we're always trying to go for more money. You know, like in your job, you come up for your, year kind of review, whatever it might be, and your aim is to get a raise. Your boss's aim is to not give you the raise. It's kind of like a tug and, push and pull type kind of thing. I think I was about to say tug and chub, which is a H3H3. Tug and chuck? What does he call it? Tug and chub? Tug and chub. That's what he calls it.
Sounds dirty.
But yeah, it sounds dirty. He's just talking about the fupa is what he's talking about. But it's just one of these things where, of course, I don't know that it necessarily highlights a salary disparity if you're Sage Northcutt, who people kind of consider the golden boy, who gets all the sponsorships, who's on the Metro PCS commercials, who's on all these things. I think he's easily clearing over 100K easily.
Probably,
and he's not even 25. Like he's 22 now or something like that.
Maybe. I got it. He's a big KSI fan. That's what it is. He seems like he's in the age range. He probably likes this stuff. Big KSI fan. Wants to fight. He wants to get some revenge for KSI. No? Losing it? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I saw somebody, they corrected it was Tuck and Chub. They were correct. It was Tuck and Chub.
Great stuff.
Yeah. Sorry about the rant on that. I know people... I know no one actually wants the Logan Paul fight, but I think by talking about it so much in the way that the media currently is, again, I'm criticizing what they're saying. I'm not joining in and telling you what Logan Paul said. Yeah. So it's like that's kind of my whole thing. It's like, don't make it happen. Don't make it happen.
Going back up in the chat, Aidan confirmed he's actually from Dublin, from Coolock. He's only down the road from me. I thought he was from down the country. I thought he was a country boy. He's a city boy. That's insane. I did not guess that. That's brilliant. There was I have a question as well it was from an old video. They put a question in it. I'm going to go to it now in a minute. From an old video they wanted us to answer on this one, so I will go to that in a second. Rafael Schaefer, what we need to do is do more DMT and talk less about Logan Paul. Yeehaw.
Nice.
Great stuff. Someone said now and later said, as long as it's not the main event or co-main event and the rest of the card is stacked, I'm okay with it. He's going to train and he's not old like CM Punk. That was sloppy, LOL. So it seems like there is some people who wouldn't mind seeing it.
Drives me nuts, dude. Yeah. It just drives me nuts. Like if he would arguably do better on his own anyway. Like he did really well for that event. Just fight somebody else. Like outside of the UFC, someone else, I don't know. I don't care. Like, just don't fight in the UFC. Like, it's a pro fighting league. Like, I'm just not on board. I'm not on board with it either. So I'm gonna get this question up here. 1 second. So it's from Jan Kasperchik. I'm going to say that. He said, question for the next podcast. Brazilians are known to come from harsh favela environment. They ought to be tough mentally. And it's proven again and again that it's not the case. Jose Aldo crumbled under pressure. RDA, Gadella, Silva and others. We disagree already. What makes Dagestanis different than Brazilians as they come from similar backgrounds? Because you got knocked out in a fight doesn't mean you're not tough mentally.
They crumbled. 13 seconds. I'm joking.
Jesus. Somebody like Jose Aldo. Like, the number one comment I got on my top 10, greatest fighters ever was, where's Jose Aldo? That guy is an incredible athlete and deserves so much credit. Like, that McGregor just hits that fucking hard. Like, why can't we just give Conor the credit there? Like, Brazilians are tough as fuck. And I mean, especially if you come from that background, the hungriest people that you ever see are the ones that were brought up poor, or were brought up in less than, or they got, or they got something to prove to their dad who was too rich and didn't give them enough attention. That happens too. It's like one of these kind of funny things. But no, I think the Dagestani guys, I don't know. I mean, it could be a different animal. I don't know. But they're coming from the wrestling background on top of things, where wrestling is already a very, very grinding thing. And I wouldn't even argue that they're tougher. I would just argue that you have a style that rewards you for that effort. Whereas the shootbox guys like Vanderlei Silva were full contact sparring. They were tough as fuck. They didn't need to do that, but they were fighting each other every day. You know, Shogun and Vanderlei famously fought over a puppy that they had a disagreement over just because that's what they did. You know, they just would fight. I think that wrestling rewards it because wrestling doesn't make you chinny. You know, like you might bust up your leg or something like that because you've contorted it or, you know, fell on it in a weird way or something like that. Maybe that's the case, but it doesn't make you chinny, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I disagree with the assessment of, not your assessment, just the original assessment in general. But yeah, in terms of just Dagestanis in general, they are a different breed. It's insane. Like, I remember watching a Chael Sonnen video and he was talking about Khabib talking about how many incredible wrestlers is in this one, is it a city, Dagestan? I don't know what I know that they call themselves a country. It's a bit weird political situation.
It's like a province.
Yeah, but it's insane that just in his village apparently there's just a whole group of these amazing world-class Sambo fighters and wrestlers. So they're just again, there's a comment there that basically said that they're just born into it. They're born into Sambo, which is like the official sport over there apparently. I'm not 100% up on my history of Dagestan, but yeah, they're born into it. It's almost like soccer, I'll say, for Jason, because anytime I say football you get so confused. What's going on?
It's like that Neil deGrasse Tyson meme where he's like, what?
Yeah, I love that. Soccer over here or Gaelic over here. I'll even mess you up more. Gaelic, GAA football. Or I guess American football.
Why do you call it Gaelic football? I realize that's the language. Why do you call it Gaelic
football?
No,
it's a different sport.
Wait, so Gaelic also means a form of speaking and a form of sport?
Does Gaelic football, so I guess Irish football. Have you never seen this?
No.
Oh man, I got to introduce you to this. Gaelic football is a sport in Ireland, crazy sport in Ireland, and it's amateur. So these guys are amateur players who basically play for clubs and play for their county, and they fill arenas. Croke Park Stadium, 80,000 people for a final for an amateur sport. There was a cool story about this famous soccer player, Roy Keane, who started to manage a team in England, and he basically showed them a Gaelic football game because he was saying, you guys are getting paid all this money to play this sport. Check this out. These guys are amateurs, and look what these are doing. Look at what they're putting their body through to basically play the sport they love. If you can open up your screen now in 2 seconds, I'll show you this mad sport. There's also a sport called hurling that is played with a stick, and they just smack people. They have like a really hard ball that they absolutely smack around the field. It's like the one of the fastest games in the world. But yeah,
for some reason it's still not showing on the screen.
Should show now in 1 second.
I don't know if we're just that far behind or what, but there it is. All of a sudden, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. What are we looking at here? Speed. It's like weird because you guys are seeing this 10 seconds after I'm saying it. Type.
Yeah. I gotta share my screen next time. That'll make more sense.
Yeah. That would be a good call. But like, I mean, it just looks like rugby to me. I don't know rugby though. Like rugby is like a very select thing. Like you do it here, and no one else knows what that's about. It's just like a fun activity, like somebody playing wiffle ball or I don't even know, like some obscure sport here. I'm sure there are communities in America where people are all about it, but in general, now.
Yeah, there's a New York team that plays Gaelic football. I think it's just all Irish expats that are over there.
What's the key difference between this and rugby? It's just a soccer ball instead of a rugby ball?
So it's probably more like soccer, I guess. Mixture of rugby a little bit. But have you watched Aussie rules, like Aussie football? Footy?
All out of it, no.
Yeah, it's similar to that. But yeah, it's a crazy game. You should check it out sometime. I think you'll like it.
I'll be honest. So like I'm not saying just because I don't necessarily watch a lot of team sports. I mean, I grew up like playing, like a lot of team sports and stuff like that. And I grew up watching a lot of basketball and stuff. I'm not saying even if I was that I would know about this, because we as Americans tend to be very insular in our sports. But yeah, it's completely foreign to me.
Yeah.
Never even heard of it.
Yeah.
I just always thought of Gaelic as like just a language. Yeah. But you guys just call it Irish there, though. Like in Scotland, they still call it Gaelic, but in Irish, it's proper to just call it Irish.
Yeah,
right?
we just call it Irish, and not a lot of people actually speak Irish. I don't speak Irish.
Yeah, I saw in one interview like Conor spoke like a broken form of Irish to somebody.
But he went to. There's a few, like there's not many, but there's a few Irish schools. So like some kids will go to Irish schools like that, so they speak Irish while they're learning. Obviously to preserve the language, but not a whole lot of people. There's places in Ireland, small kind of communities that speak it, but not a whole lot, to be honest.
God, I swear in another life I would study linguistics. I just find that stuff so fascinating. Everyone else is probably super bored, but I'm like fascinated right now. But.
Yeah. If you have any more questions, get them in quick and we'll go quick fire because we can't stick around for too much longer. I have a few things I wanted to ask you, get your opinion on. Max Holloway done an interview recently. Apparently the Brian Ortega versus Max Holloway fight is close for UFC 231, I guess. But he done an interview with UFC Tonight, which is funny because that's the same place he done the original interview. They got him pulled from the other card, and basically said that they still don't know what the hell happened, but he was cleared from any concussion-related injuries, I guess, or no issues with his potential next weight cut because his potassium levels and stuff were fine. So, what's your thoughts? Do you still have concerns over Max Holloway, or do you think, let's just do it?
Yeah, I get from his point of view, you're like headstrong, you're, always got your nose to the grindstone, you keep going forward. But like from an outside perspective, it's like you got pulled out of a fight and we still don't know why, but we could clearly see that so he just looks awful, and the fact that it's one of the things I actually appreciate about Bisping when he's on, he'll call people out, he'll say things like he bickered with Colby Covington on the air right after he won his interim belt. I loved that. I love that about him, that he called Holloway out. Like, dude, are you okay? You look like you just woke up from a nap, kind of thing. But I find it more concerning because it's like there's no guarantee that it won't just happen at the next fight. I imagine they're going to be monitoring him like crazy. They're going to be looking at everything. It's like, was there just some weird quick dip with your potassium levels? What was it? It's more concerning for me. Yeah.
For me, it's kind of more concerning as well. I'm glad they said that it wasn't concussion related because we know how bad that can be, especially in this sport. So hopefully that's the case, but I'm just not convinced. I'm not convinced. We were asked about the PFL card that was last night, I guess. I didn't see it because it'd just be on an insane hours over here, and I've work on Fridays. Gonna watch it this weekend. Did you get to see it? I don't mind the spoilers.
I saw a couple of the fights. I saw Omar. It feels weird to just call him Omar. But Khabib's cousin. Omar Nurmagomedov. That was a pretty good fight. The third round was a lot of fun, a lot of action there. He ended up winning that. That was on the prelims, which is convenient on Facebook. I missed the fights pretty much after that, though, because I don't know if it's like I don't have NBC SN, I don't have the network that it airs on, but I did at least read the recaps from it. I know Sean O'Connell, dude, he does a great job.
Yeah,
he actually does play-by-play instead of color commentary. So that's he had Randy Couture and Boss Root in the booth with him.
That's weird.
And he was doing play-by-play.
That's rare.
Yeah, but he got laid out. He wasn't knocked out cold, but he got TKO'd. Yeah. So he I did see the highlights for that, or Capoza. Thank God Capoza's on Twitter.
Capoza, the man.
And then I'm missing the Abdullah versus Rama. I didn't get to actually see it, but it did seem like a bit of a BS call because they work on a point structure. So he ended up actually advancing to the playoffs as a result of, in the second round, he made it through, almost got knocked out. Was it Rama? He made it through, but when he got to kind of the corner at the very last second, somebody walked in there like, oh, this is a doctor stoppage. We're ruling this is a TKO, which if it would have gone over just one more rounds, he would have not, it wouldn't have mattered. He would have knocked out Abdullah cold. Like, it wouldn't have mattered. It would have been the end of the fight. But he wouldn't have advanced to the playoffs. So it seemed like it was like, oh, let's make this happen to where he can go to the playoffs. Let's give him the points he needs in order to do this. And it would have only happened in the second or first round for him to be able to advance. So I was a little odd for me.
Yeah, I didn't see it. Yeah, I didn't see it, but MMA Bud said, pray for Leroy Johnson. Underwent emergency neck surgery. I have it up on the screen now. Ooh. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. It'll change now in 2 seconds again. Just a little bit of a delay for people. But I'll play it once it comes up for you. Apparently it was a really bad knockout. Again, I'm going to check this out tonight, I guess, the whole card. But let's have a look at this, because apparently this is bad.
I didn't hear about that.
Holy fuck.
It's so weird, like, being on this much of a delay. Holy fuck, I just saw that too. Joking around. I don't remember this one just based off the thumbnail, so we'll see. But very, very interesting stuff. I think PFL puts on a great product, I should say. Oh, it's coming through now.
Jesus, that is violent.
Yeah. Wow.
These are on MMAfighting.com's website on some articles, so if you want to go check them out yourself, go check it out.
I have not seen the report, so I'm curious to see what the prognosis is.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently it was emergency. So hopefully he's okay, because that looked bad. I'm going to check that card out when we finish here, but we'll leave it there. We'll let you go, Jason. Thanks again for joining me. Is there any new videos coming out? Anything I should be looking forward to for the weekend, or anything that recently came out that I might not have watched?
I am. So if people think it's a bad idea, but I do kind of want to point out everything I've kind of said here, and this is kind of nice because it's giving me a chance to vent about it and kind of clear my head, because most of the people I talk to about this stuff are, my friends that don't necessarily live here, or they're not here when I'm like, thinking about it. But I'm probably going to write a script about that, and just kind of like, I don't like picking on MMA media. I don't like picking on anybody. I like to be kind of fair about that stuff. But like, it just gets on my nerves so much when everybody's doing the same thing and no one's trying to do anything different, and they're all just kind of jumping on board on something and no one's offering any objections to it. I feel like fans are, but you're not seeing it from other members of the media. So if you guys think that is a bad idea, it is one of those things. I still haven't written it. I'll probably write it after this. I'm curious to get what you guys think. But basically the idea is criticizing the fact that we're so hard on CM Punk. And then you've got a guy like Brendan Schaub. It's almost like he's pointing over. Meanwhile, the CM Punk thing is just behind him. And he's just like, I like this to happen. He's a better promoter in the UFC. And I bet you they're thinking about bringing him over, which is basically what he said in his interview. So tell me if you don't like it in the comments, because I will seriously consider any input on that. Cool.
I'm looking forward to that. Also, there was something. When this ends, make a comment on the actual video, because one thing I actually wanted to ask in the chat, I didn't have time, was people. I'm always wondering how people found us. Was it just through YouTube, through social media, that kind of stuff? So leave a comment after this video goes live for the people who are still here, who have left, and let us know where you found us. Did MMA Point bring you over? Did Brendan Dorman bring you over? Did you find us on Twitter? Let us know, because that'll be interesting. But thanks again, Jason, and looking forward to that video.
I'm not Chuck Liddell. I can't do that. Thanks, man.